you may never have heard of it. It's a very new party, and this is our first time fielding candidates in the parliamentary elections. I heartily endorse absolutely everything that David Ash has said, and I suppose we might split the vote here. But what he said is absolutely true. And Maeve was right when she said that we're the 5th wealthiest country in the world. But there are absolute anomalies in our society that are absolutely horrendous. We have 1 in 10 households unable to feed their children properly. We have 3 food banks in Sutton, with 1 million people nationwide going to food banks. I have recently, I won't go into the story, heard of a teacher who had to go to a food bank. We have 700,000 people on 0 hours contracts. We have public service closures left, right and centre, and lots more looming because the 3 main parties voted in January for £30 billion cuts. So we've got 1 in 10 libraries have already closed. There's a vicious attitude, while sort of feathering the nest of the millionaires, there's a vicious attitude to people on benefits with sanctions, with 60 suicides now being investigated by the DWP, Department of Work and Pensions itself. We've got a huge and widening gap between the rich and the rest of us. And we're moving towards a society where most will be living in 1930s conditions, without support from the welfare state, while the rich are living in luxury. Now, our main policies are, firstly, to reverse all public sector cuts, including to the NHS, which must be expanded and fully publicly owned and run service. Free education for all, 0 university tuition fees. £10 per hour minimum wage now. Build 1 million homes, and for those who are not going to go into those, institute rent controls immediately. End the bedroom tax and benefits actions, and for the reasons David has given, totally oppose TTIP. Now, where's the money coming from? Mr. Scully said we're the Magic One party. Well, I'll tell you, we'll nationalise the banks, we'll renationalise energy, so that's how we'll stop them putting the prices up, because you can't control what you don't own. Somebody told me that a long time ago. We'll renationalise rail, the post and water. We'll release the 600 billion that the major corporations are sitting on, that they've not invested anywhere. Chase up the £120 billion unpaid tax. I think that's been in the news. We will £100 billion from Trident. The big 4 property developments have enough to build cash to build 1.4 million homes, and the councils have 24,000 hectares of greenfield land, and we will not pay the PFI £60 billion owed. Policy is actually not for private building of houses, it is for public, for reinstating, if you like, the council housing programme that happened before. Now, 40% of private tenants' income in this country goes on rent. That is totally unacceptable figure. That leaves many people actually with very little disposable income, and that actually was the reason why the teacher was going to the food bank, because, and I've got a minute now to fill you in, because she was a supply teacher. Now, the local authorities used to have a bank of supply teachers, but now it's run by private agencies. And by the way, privatisation, a little known happenstance of privatisation, is that the wages are driven down. And I know that because I go to Carshorton Leisure Centre and the Westcroft Leisure Centre, and they tell me there that since it was tendered out, their wages have dropped dramatically. And that was what happened to this teacher. The private companies providing supply teachers now are forcing the teachers to become self-employed, and when she went on maternity leave, she did not have any maternity pay from them. And so when she finished her maternity leave, she was short of nappies and food, and she went to the food bank. That's a disgrace. It's a total and utter disgrace in this country, because this is a wealthy country. And If you want to go ahead, my party has nothing against you as a private landlord, but your rent must not be 40% of your tenant's income. It must be a much, much lower figure. And
so you want to control it?
That is, yes, it must be. I remember when we had controlled rents, and I remember when we had controlled rents. Rents in London are going through the roof, and that is the result. You have people who cannot afford to pay them. You're also going to lose a whole section of public sector workers if we're not careful, because of the way housing is provided in Greater London.
Thank you.
I want to spend more, actually. Post-war national debt was twice what it is today in real terms, and yet we saw then the founding of the NHS, the actual setting up of the welfare state, and we had free prescriptions, free dental work, all these gains that have actually been taken now away from us. And I think I outlined where we're going to get the money, from. We are going to take over the financial institutions. There are billions of pounds that are actually have not been collected in tax. I remember actually when they wrote off the £6 billion, that Vodafone, they just wrote off their £6 billion tax debt. Consistently, right up till now, the tax has not been collected from the wealthy, but much less wealthy people have been totally hounded. That's one thing, and I think I outlined before.
Thank you.
Has been used as an excuse to freeze public sector pay, make cuts and hand benefits recipients. But it hasn't been that way for everybody. The RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, that we own 84% in, had a 3.5 billion loss, but we have paid out 421 million pounds in bonuses to the chiefs of that bank. So TUSC would end austerity. We would end the climate of austerity. We would reverse the cuts. We're part of a family where part of it had been involved for a long time in peace and trade union activity. And as a teenager, I joined CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and I still support that. I believe then in the mixed economy, much as the four main parties do. But then I saw the Labour Party clause 4 to take into public ownership the commanding heights of the economy, and then I realised that would be so people would benefit, not bosses. But sadly, Harold Wilson did not end the UK intervention in the Vietnam War, and he made me join, well, that's the reason why I joined the Socialist Party. It was his fault. And then, after having been in the Labour Party for about 30 years, Tony Blair dropped the clause 4, and I left the Labour Party, or the Labour Party left me. Yeah. TUSC has no interest in joining the Millionaires Club, and TUSC MPs will take only the average wage. They will not take the 67,000. Right, for many youth today, the prospects are very bleak. But TUSC has much to offer young people. Firstly, the £10 minimum wage. Secondly, we would set up real paid proper apprenticeships. Thirdly, we would end internships, which are either exploitative or only open to the wealthy. We would put a complete end to 0 hours contracts. And we would reopen any closed youth centres and ensure more are developed. And these would have proper IT facilities. I have actually seen one, drove past one, with proper IT facilities, proper cafe facilities, and an ongoing education programme, but selected by the youth itself who attend those centres. and a social life, hopefully. Absolutely.
One, agree.